after rain, since no underground flows, there are no underground flows into the creek because the aquifers have been lost. Ponds will dry up quickly and creek ecosystem will be lost, resulting in algal growth in the remaining polluted ponds. The result is major weed growth. And the other result after that is a big increase in the council costs because we're going to have these polluted creeks, which we don't have at the moment. Now we know this is true because there are many local bores over previously mined areas which are now dry. And this is exactly, and we also know why it's true, because this is exactly what has happened in Myrtle Creek, which was undermined over the last couple of years. And that is a creek which is between Thirlmere and Thirlmere and continues down and also joins into, it flows down underneath Remembrance Drive and continues down there. The Redbank Creek actually has deeper gorges than Myrtle Creek, and so it can be expected that the damage will be great, because it's an issue when you have mining continuing, or longwall mines continuing under creeks where there's gorges. There's an effect where the sides of the gorge move in and the base of the gorge moves up. If you've got a rigid sandstone base in the creek, that is going to crack. That's what happened in Myrtle Creek. That's what will happen in Redbank Creek. The next issue is Thirlmere Lakes. There is actually, as you've heard, there's a government inquiry into loss of water from these lakes. It's now underway, and they'll be asking for submissions and holding a public forum on the 31st of March in this hall. It hasn't actually been advertised yet, and it's only 2 weeks away, but that's what is planned to occur. Now, the facts with Thirlmere Lakes are, Thirlmere has 5 lakes. These are the facts that we know. We'll leave any decision to the committee of inquiry. I'm not going to second guess what they're going to say, but the facts that we know are 5 lakes Thirlmere has with World Heritage classification because of their unique characteristics. Now, these characteristics will be very interesting for a lot of people to find out what they are, because there is very good reason for these lakes being classified as World Heritage areas. And I found it a very interesting thing to find out a little bit more about that, which I won't go into now. Now, all lakes are now mostly dry. This has been a progressive development over recent years. Now, the most southern lake, and we call that Ratcliffe's Lake, it was the deepest, and it was the first lake to empty. During that time, there was water being pumped from the mine into the Bargo River, and that increased dramatically during that period from less than 3 megalitres or million litres per day to over 11 million litres per day. The other lakes have been emptying much more slowly, but flow rates from the mine have continued at a much higher level than before the emptying of Ratcliffe's Lake. Now, in conclusion, I've made these points to explain the extent of the burden that this community has already suffered, more than could be reasonably asked of any community. A mine shaft with its visual, air, noise and water pollution in the midst of our villages is a step too far. Xstrata must find an alternative.
Any questions for David? That there is quite a possibility, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, that the house values also, you won't know what your house has decreased in value if you do have that damage and the foundations are damaged until you go to sell. And when that new buyer goes to get a building inspection and your foundations are damaged, you know how much your house is worth.
Sorry for hogging the question times, but my question is in relation to what you're talking about and the impacts on subsidence on houses and buildings. Is Xstrata, or is the Substance Board actually compensating, paying for, or making available the best possible mental health, stress and other mental services available to help these people once they go through this extraordinary, painful and very, very difficult time in their lives?
I will answer that. Because it's a very relevant question. It's one that's often raised with community members of this committee that I'm on. There's been that is one issue. There's the problem when anybody is undermined and a damage occurs to their house and they go to see the Mine Subsidence Board, or Subsidence Board, whichever you like, the board tells them that there's no point doing anything until we've had three long wall panels. So there's 3 adjacent panels completed, which means approximately 3 years before we do any repairs to that house. So the fact then that there's no way they can sell their place during that time, which they might want to do, there's all these issues that Peter just mentioned about psychological problems and issues that happen between families. There's been so many families have broken up. There's been an incredible series of problems which have developed from exactly this, and that is just another one of those issues which is seriously needs a review of this Mine Subsidence Act.
David, I'll use my big two.
Just hold on.
And can you quantify some of the damage that's occurred in the Thirlmere area around houses? Number of houses, dollars. And second part of the question is it true that Xstrata expects families to sign a confidentiality agreement when they pay for damage or replace said damaged property?
Now that's an interesting. The second part of that's an interesting question, and I've spoken to a few people at the end, and I've heard that sometimes people are required to sign to say that they're happy that what has been finished is adequate and they're happy with it. But there's other times people don't remember having done that, and it really comes back to that there's no transparency, that the Mine Subsidence or Subsidence Board does not, in fact, inform people that this is the case, that they do have damaged foundations and that any future damage will be looked on more kindly, or they don't actually, that issue doesn't really come up. As far as the number of places which are damaged, they did actually give that at our last meeting, I think. The numbers are given out, the ongoing figures for the number of houses which are damaged, and they're in the, what, 100? Do you remember offhand? Yeah, they're over 100 since Longwall 22. So there's been, how many houses have been replaced, demolished and replaced? About 6. So, yeah, well, anyway, there's been a number of houses demolished and replaced, and there's also been, well, a lot of houses damaged, and a lot more have been left after they've been fixed, or to what the owners think they've been fixed, or they've been left either in tilt and or with damaged foundations. So that's the situation.
Okay, thank you, David.
Chap up, stand up. Yeah.
Hi, David. Isn't it true that you said between 0.6 to 1.2, but over in Progress Street it dropped approximately 1.5 and it's caused horrific damage to a lot of houses through there? You can take like schools.
I said 0.6 to 1.2 because that's the common thing, but it does go up to 1.5, and I think that's.
And there's a road over there that it's dropped half a metre, and there's a ramp. You go along and you go up, just over the back of the road, directly from the shopping centre over. Abelia Street. You want to go and look
maybe
at that?
I'll leave that question, and you can put that later on.
And as far as how many homes have been damaged in the area, I believe it's around 500. And you only got to go to Marion Street and up in there where they've been replacing total homes because they're totally stuffed.
I'll leave that question for Ed.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, the next speaker is is Ian Shepherd, Thirlmere Colliery Environment and Community Manager. I'm not sure whether Peter Vale, who's the Operation Manager at Thirlmere, is going to speak as well. Very brief. So if Ian would like to come up first, or no, sorry, Peter's going to speak first.
Welcome all. We have been asked to come along and open up some avenues of communication tonight. We're happy to do that. At Thirlmere Colliery, we are charged to extract coal in a safe and efficient manner, and we are quite proud of our record with dealing with the communities, including this community over the years, regardless of other opinions. Ian is here with some information he'd like to give, and then we are quite prepared to answer questions after. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to come and speak with you here tonight. I'd like to run through just a couple of points. In general terms, I want to just speak about Thirlmere Colliery and Xstrata coal and the way, in broad terms, we view the local community. I'd like to talk also about just some of the avenues of communication. There are many, many avenues of communication that we try to maintain with our local community. But I'd like to talk about a few of those specifically, just to make people aware of the different means in which we try to converse and maintain a dialogue between ourselves and the community in general. And then I'd like to talk about number 4 shaft, the proposed number 4 shaft location in Innes Street. This is, I must emphasise, this is very early days in the communication process. As you've heard before, we have not yet lodged a development application. We already have a development approval for a shaft, ventilation shaft and fan in Bridge Street. And at this stage, we're undertaking community consultation regarding our proposal to relocate that shaft to the end of Innes Street in Thirlmere, which no doubt many of you are aware to some degree. There will no doubt be a lot of communication, a lot of consultation. There will be many, many questions that will be asked, not only by yourselves, but by government regulators and government representatives. And there is a journey that we will all go down with regard to this proposal before ultimately any decision is made, one way or the other. So certainly today is part of that early communication. This year marks the start, or early this year marks the start of that process. It will be many, many months before we get to a position where we have a decision on the proposed location of this shaft. And I'll just run through a couple of points in general. I've been asked to answer some specific questions from the shafted group, and I'll endeavour to answer those, the most in general terms, because our investigations and assessments are still in the very early days at this stage. But I'll come back to those in a little more detail later. Let me say that Thirlmere Colliery has been part of this local community for over 30 years. The colliery operation provides broad economic, community and individual benefits, as well as positive local, regional and state outcomes, and not to mention for the nation as a whole. These benefits, be they through employment generation, purchase of goods and services, or through payment of rates, royalties and taxes to governments at all levels, must be considered by all and balanced against the broader issues and impacts that may arise from the colliery's existence. As a stakeholder within the community, Thirlmere Colliery takes its corporate and community responsibilities seriously, and we always maintain an open, or try to maintain an open dialogue with our local community. Thirlmere Colliery, in recent years, has sought to maintain and expand this dialogue through a variety of means. These include community information days. Last year we held 4 in the Thirlmere area, and we've already held 1 this year, and there will certainly be others before the year is out. We distribute newsletters and drop mail-outs to individuals and other groups periodically, based on whether mining is occurring, or in some cases with newsletters on a weekly or monthly basis. We have direct communication through personal contact, telephone and newsletter. We hold a community consultative committee meeting 4 times a year, and other such events such as briefings or inspections as may be required with our community consultative committee. And that's made up of people who have put their hand up within the local community to be part of that committee. It includes councillors nominated by Wallandilly Shire Council. It incorporates people from the colliery, including myself, and it's chaired by an independent chairperson. And our chairperson is Michael Muston, maybe known to some of the people here, was formerly General Manager of Wingecarribee Shire Council. We have regular consultation with elected community representatives from local, state and federal government as appropriate. We have a community social involvement program where we provide financial and in-kind support to worthy organisations, events and charities right throughout this area. And we participate in many, many community forums outside the direct operation of the colliery. Our attendance today at this meeting is a further example of our willingness to consult and communicate within our local community. The proposed number 4 ventilation shaft is required to continue the safe and economic operation of Thirlmere Colliery as it extracts the remaining coal from the Thirlmere North coal leases lying beneath the area between the townships of Thirlmere, Picton and Thirlmere. In the early 1990s, as we heard earlier tonight, Thirlmere Colliery received development consent to not only mine this coal, but to construct a ventilation shaft, a fan installation, personnel entry, offices, car park, bathroom, and its Bridge Street site near the main Southern Railway line in Bridge Street. Since the early 1990s, small but significant changes in the projected mine plan has resulted in the current proposal to construct a ventilation shaft and fan facility on land at the end of Innes Street in Thirlmere to replace a suboptimal location as is now turned out in Bridge Street. Currently this proposal is being developed to a point where a development application can be lodged to seek consent to vary the location of this shaft from Bridge Street to Innes Street. Those environment and community aspects and issues are still being assessed and we have a way to go. One of the most important things for you to consider at this time is for those issues that are of direct concern to you, and we receive those issues in many ways, are conveyed to us so that we can incorporate, include and assess those as part of the overall assessment for the Innes Street shaft site, or the proposed Innes Street shaft site. We've certainly taken quite a lot of notes tonight from the issues that have been raised, and I'm sure there'll be many more issues and concerns that will be raised both tonight and in the weeks to come before a final application is lodged and through the lengthy consultation and approval process that Jay Roll has outlined earlier tonight. As I said, consultation and communication with stakeholders such as this local community is underway, and we certainly value this meeting as part of that communication. What I'd like to do now is probably run through some issues that we've received in writing that I will respond to tonight. I certainly will emphasise that we don't have all the answers tonight. We still have a fair way to go to complete those assessments and to make sure that the issues that you've raised both tonight, in prior community meetings and no doubt in those that will follow in the weeks to come, are addressed and adequately and acceptably with the aim of ideally meeting those concerns and issues as we move forward. Not only this community has requirements and issues, but there is very, very large amounts of state government legislation, environmental legislation that we must comply with and that we will need to address, as well as the issues of the community. And that will take place over the coming months as we move through the application process. I'd now like to just touch on some of the issues that are raised, and already we've had some raised here tonight, but I will go through the ones that Sandra has given me, and no doubt there'll be other questions. But I would like to emphasise that at this point in time we certainly don't have all our environmental and community studies complete. We have a way to go, so many of these will be answered in more detail in the weeks to come. The first question concerns health. Is that better? Just try not to shake it too much. What is the chemical makeup of the gases emitted as exhaust from the proposed shaft, and what is the safe limits of those chemicals, and what are the effects of those chemicals on my health? Effectively, the shaft draws through the mine air, fresh air, the same air that we're breathing now. When I'm underground, when Peter Vale's underground, when the miners of Thirlmere are underground, that's what they breathe. That air comes through the mine, circulates through the mine to keep the mine safe and to keep the mine healthy for the people to work in underground. That air is ultimately exhausted to the surface through a ventilation shaft and through the ventilation fans to the atmosphere. That's currently happening right now. Since the early days at Thirlmere, it happened through the #1 ventilation shaft. It's located in Stratford Road in Thirlmere. In later years, it was a new shaft was sunk immediately beside the old Hume Highway and the mine site. #3 shaft, that's called. There was a fan installation established there and operated there for many years, directly across the road from the homes in Olive Lane. Yes?
Excuse me, are there any filters on those fans?
I'll come to that, but I will answer that, thank you. The fan that's operating now is on the #2 shaft. That fan was commissioned a number of years back, I think 3.5, 4 years back now, and that is now currently used to ventilate the mine. The design of those fans has improved dramatically as each of those shafts and their fan installations were replaced and a new fan installation constructed. On those fans are state-of-the-art sound attenuation and noise reduction hardware built onto those exhaust ducts to bring the noise levels of those fans not only down to the minimum statutory limit, but much lower than that level, such that any impact on the local community is negligible, if not unapparent at all. And certainly our most recent shaft, as it's now operating, is achieving those levels. Had some difficulties, I'll admit, in the early days with some unexpected impacts, but they